We seem to be on a little bit of a conqueror streak. I figure I would post a video on the Hellmaw U1 build, including an update on which built-in weapon is best. Hey everyone, Debra here, and welcome back to another Battle Pirates video. This is a PvP video, so I'm going to share my disclaimer here, which says if you don't like me sharing PvP videos, don't watch. This might not necessarily be the best build out there in every single case, but it's at least a starting one to get people going. With that said, let's go ahead and jump into the video. Now the Hellmaw is a U1 hull. It is pretty interesting. It's immune to the radiation dampener field, which is a very interesting stat here, so people are going to be using the new Harlock's ballistic one instead, and that's just that. You pretty much need this at U1 for it to be effective. Sorry to say, but that's the truth. U1 is pretty nice. It gives you a bunch of armor points, gives it evade, gives it radioactive defense that's higher, gives it concussive defense, and gives you some rocket reload. Some very interesting things there, and also some heavy weapon unlocks, which I'll talk about towards the end of the video. The Hellmaw does have a rocket reload stat there, which is pretty high. You can get close to maxing it out there. Make sure you don't put on too many specials for the rockets there. Cluster Warheads 3 is pretty much going to be all you need. A few special abilities, but nothing too exciting. It does reveal subs on the world map. In terms of the standard weapon, you really only have one choice. That is the Fire Flag rockets, the thing that came out with the Hellmaw. You're going to want to use those on all four. It is pretty quick. By the way, my time here is not right because I have this equipped. You have to have a hull that's already upgraded in order in the shipyard. I'm in refit mode, not build mode. So that's what you want there for your weapons there, or at least your regular ones. The armor is a kind of very similar story to the video I posted just yesterday with the other Conqueror hull, the Hololight Cruiser, the new one that just came out there, in that it doesn't really matter and isn't really going to do anything because deflection doesn't matter. If anything, you can go for the EV10 Evade armors. I'll just throw that on there right now because why not? But it is over a 2-day build for just that armor. In terms of the specials, several of those are relatively straightforward. Now is also a good time to mention that we are expecting a new special to come out here in Bounty next week, so that might change things around slightly. Actually, two new specials. One will be a Conquest Battery, the other one might be Defender, might be Conqueror, not quite sure yet. In any case, you definitely want to be using a turbocharged engine X for the explosive damage plus 10%, as well as the nice combat speed and evade bonuses on here. The second special slot you're going to want to use is, of course, Invasion Scanner 3, as I highlighted in the Hololight Carrier build. This is very important. It gives you a massive damage boost, which this hull definitely needs. You can do a ton of explosive damage with this. Special slot number 3 is going to be more things that are helping with explosive damage, which is kind of a theme for some Conquerors. This is going to be Desolation Warheads, something that came out along with the Conquerors, and we've had it for quite a while here, and it is a pretty needed special. I couldn't really imagine building an explosive hull here without this special. So Desolation Warheads is something you definitely want to be using here. Gives you a massive amount of explosive damage. It is very, very nice. You don't want to go anything else like Warhead Reloader. That never really made sense other than the Icebreaker and some of the stuff it first came out with. I also don't really like taking a whole special slot to use the Explosive Scope or something like that, especially with deflection being less important these days than it has historically been. At this point, we're going to want to use a battery. You have a few options here, including Siege Battery 4 or Conquest Battery 1. Again, expecting Conquest Battery 2. Haven't seen the stats on that there, but it may be better than the one I'm going to use, which is the Garrison Battery MKX. Because of how the explosive damage and the building damage stack, and the fact that this explosive damage helps against ships too, you're going to want to use Garrison Battery. It does the most damage. You want to use this on your ship here. It is very, very nice. The others might be a backup. Now we'll see if when we actually get into the raid and bounty and stuff like that, if the Conquest Battery 2 is better. At this point, I'm actually going to recommend that you put on Agility System 4, which isn't necessarily the best thing for a Conqueror hull. The evade is nice, the slow and stun resistance is nice, although tactical field resistance is more important, and you already have from Invasion Scanner 3. But with the U1 upgrade there, and maybe with the EV10 armors, your evade does get up to 70%, which is close enough to start to matter in some cases, so I would definitely consider using that for there. Now, the last special is something I already teased here, which is Cluster Warheads 3. This is a blueprint special. This is the only reload one you want to use. You can get this from salvages if you don't have it already, and it gives you a massive amount of rocket reload. Now what you'll notice here is that your attack, you have a rocket reload of almost plus 500, which will cut your reload in 1/6, and your reload time base here is 5 seconds. That gets converted down. You can divide that by 4 because you'll be at legendary rank by the time you're actually using this hole. So your 5-second time is really going to be a 1.25 second, and if you just consider the radioactive reload from this right here, you're going to essentially cut that in 6, which gets you to just above the plus 0.2 reload time for the weapon, which means you don't want to add something else like XM Reloader. You'll get below that minimum reload there and it won't matter. Now, the last thing we are missing here is a heavy weapon. Let's now talk about the 3 heavy weapons and why you might want to use them. Now, of course, you can get these from Bounty if you don't have them, but you actually already have the built-in Magma Mortar, which is the one that actually I'm going to recommend in most cases. Let's take a look at the stats here on the Magma Mortar and the things you're going to want to use with this. So as you can see, this does need the U1 Hellmaw to go in. It is an upgrade from that built-in weapon. It turns it into something else. This does a fair amount of damage here, which is pretty much what you're going to use it for. It has MIRVs, it has a 2.8 million damage, and it looks really nice with a fairly low reload time. It also does hit things in a pretty big chunk of an area there, so this actually does a fair amount of damage, and the range on this one is 65. Let's check out the napalm knife or napalm knife, and this, as you can see, does some more damage, gives you some MIRVs mid-air, but the reload time of 2, let's compare that to the original one right there, so our Magma Mortar shoots faster. Our napalm knife also has a, if you look at the range there on the attack is 85, which is going to be longer than you really need anyway, because you're already going to be driving pretty close. If you look at the damage closely and count the MIRVs and things like that, it doesn't really end up being worth it too much, especially when you look at, the defenses and the splash damage reduction actually can be useful in PvP these days here, so it's not quite that helpful, even though, again, splash damage reduction is on both of them. The palm knife is relatively weak when you're comparing the two, and the Magma Splash Mortar is going to be a little bit better. We can also take a look at the longer range 110 range Chaos Ash Mortar. This only has one weapon, no MIRVs, no nothing. It just deals 3.8 million damage, which is not quite as high compared to the MIRV we already have here on the original hull. So this is going to be useful for sniping if you're trying to be very long range strategic one, but in most cases, and you're already going to be rushing in with these ships and using the hollow lights to come in behind, the Magma Splash Mortar is a little bit more the style that I'm going to do with driving these. And again, you could have some particular bases you're hitting where it does make sense to go with something else. This is just sort of my recommendation, easiest one for most people to use that does do a fair amount of damage in most cases. I mean, 1.8 million for the MIRV, 6 MIRV count, 2.8 million base. Compare that to the napalm knife, where you're not really doing as direct damage and stuff like that. So those are just a few things for you to consider. Again, run your numbers, make your own decisions. That's just sort of my recommendation here, is the one that already is there, which is pretty nice. It does cost 6 million points to redeem these different weapons if you are considering changing something around, although the build time, at least for the Magma Mortar, is under 5 minutes, which is pretty nice. So there's sort of my recommended build. If you do have questions on that, go ahead and let me know. I'll get back to you in the comments below. And as always, these may not be the best videos out there, the best builds out there, I should say. So your alliance might have a particular one that's a little bit different, and you think it's better, great, go ahead and use that one. But unless you have a good reason otherwise, this is the one I'm going to recommend. Go ahead and leave your thoughts on that in the comment section down below, though, and I'll make sure to get back to you. With that said, I want to give a huge thank you to those whose names appear on screen now. They're helping make videos like this possible. With that said, and until next time, this is going to be Derpy signing out, helping you be a better pirate.